News on this Friday morning. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. North Korea at it again. South Korea's military says the regime fired two, as yet unidentified projectiles into the East Sea. We'll get the latest from Seoul's Defense Ministry. Marking the anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, President Moon Jae-in says South Korea will overcome its current difficulties and come back stronger. North Korea chimes in, saying it no longer wants talks with Seoul. Plus, China spurns U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal for a personal meeting with his Chinese counterpart to calm the chaos in Hong Kong. Beijing tells Washington to stay out of its business. Okay, only one place to start this morning, and it's North Korea. The regime has fired yet more projectiles into the East Sea. It did so earlier this morning. It's the second launch in just 6 days and the sixth in 3 weeks. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Ji-yeon joins us on the line for more. So, Ji-yeon, what are you hearing from officials there at the ministry?
Well, Mark, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff has confirmed that North Korea had fired two unidentified projectiles into the East Sea this morning. And the projectiles were fired from North Korea's eastern coastal county of Dongcheon in Gangwon-do province earlier in the day, according to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which it said the South Korean military is monitoring the situation in case of additional launches while maintaining a readiness posture. No other details were immediately known, including the projectile's type, flight range, and maximum altitude at this hour. But as you mentioned, today's firing is the sixth such launch in around 3 weeks. And according to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the missiles were mostly short-range and ballistic, and were fired in the early hours in a northeasterly direction towards the East Sea, all flying at altitudes of less than 50 kilometers. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, among the series of firing by the North, it had test-fired a new type of short-range ballistic missile, North Korea's version of Russia's Iskander-class missile, which is believed to be harder to intercept due to its complicated flight trajectory. There's also North Korea's so-called a new weapon similar to U.S. Army's ATACMS. The Joint Chiefs of Staff made reassurances that they're able to neutralize all the missiles from the North with the existing Patriot anti-missile system based upon simulations. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Ji-yeon, for that report. We'll keep an eye on any updates as we get them. Details rather scant at the moment, but I'm sure we'll hear more during our next newscast at noon Korea time. Now, North Korea has slammed South Korea, saying it has no thought of ever sitting down with Seoul again. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency posted a statement by the Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of the country on Friday, criticizing how President Moon Jae-in talked about dialogue atmosphere in his Liberation Day speech on Thursday, when Seoul is currently holding joint military exercises with Washington. It outright mocked President Moon's comments that the dialogue atmosphere was not marred despite the recent worrisome acts of North Korea, which the North called a reckless remark unrelated to Liberation Day. It added President Moon is an imprudent man and said Seoul better not think of resuming talks along with the North Korea-U.S. talks once the drills are over, as that won't happen. Now, President Moon Jae-in did deliver a strong and defiant message on Thursday to mark Korea's 74th Liberation Day, with South Korea facing unprecedented trade curbs from Japan. He used the opportunity to emphasize that South Korea will be an unshakable nation that can overcome any economic challenge to it. Our presidential office correspondent Shin Se-min has this report.
Building an unshakable nation. That was the theme of President Moon's message to mark August 15th, the nation's Liberation Day, celebrating the end of Japan's colonial rule in 1945.
저는 오늘 어떤 위기에도 의연하게 대처해온 국민들을 떠올리며 우리가 만들고 싶은 나라, 아무도 흔들 수 없는 나라를 다시 다짐합니다.
Speaking during a national ceremony held at the Independence Hall of Korea in Cheonan, Chungcheongnam-do Province, President Moon Jae-in said the nation should become a responsible economic powerhouse and cooperate with Japan on an equal footing. Referring to Japan's retaliatory trade restrictions against South Korea launched at the start of July, the president sent out a clear message that his nation will overcome such trade controls.
일본의 부당한 수출 규제에 맞서 우리는 책임 있는 경제 강국을 향한 길을 뚜벅뚜벅 걸어갈 것입니다.
Highlighting that the neighbors should overcome the past and move towards the future, the president said Japan should stop using trade as a weapon.
국제 분업 체계 속에서 어느 나라든 자국이 우위에 있는 부분을 무기화한다면 평화로운 자유무역 질서가 깨질 수밖에 없습니다. 먼저 성장한 나라가 뒤따라 성장하는 나라의 사다리를 걷어차서는 안 됩니다.
This in reference to Japan recently removing South Korea from its whitelist of trusted trade partners in apparent retaliation for Seoul's handling of the issue of compensation to Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor. But President Moon gladly left a door open for possible dialogue between Seoul and Tokyo should Japan choose the path of cooperation. This follows the administration's two-track approach in resolving historical issues separately while pursuing a future-oriented relationship. And the president said he hopes Japan can play a leading role in building peace and prosperity in the region. Speaking on the upcoming Tokyo Olympics slated for next year, President Moon said it will continue an unprecedented series of Olympics being held in East Asia, with Tokyo 2020 coming in between the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and the Beijing Winter Olympics in 2022. And he called it a golden opportunity to solidifying the framework of friendship and cooperation and to move on to the path toward common prosperity. 신세민, Arirang News.
Now we are going to stick with the South Korean leader's wide-ranging National Liberation Day speech. President Moon also talked about his vision to establish a new growth engine in South Korea based on what he has labelled the peace economy. The president made an ambitious pledge of achieving one Korea by the year 2045. Lee Min-sun with the details.
President Moon Jae-in, marking Liberation Day, highlighted the importance of turning the nation's geopolitical position into a strength and using it to uphold peace and prosperity in Northeast Asia, connecting the continent with the ocean. And that can happen by combining the powers of the two Koreas.
임기 내에 비핵화와 평화 체제를 확고히 하겠다고 다짐합니다. 2045년 광복 100주년까지는 평화와 통일로 하나된 나라, 완 코리아로 세계 속에 우뚝 설 수 있도록 그 기반을 단단히 다지겠다고 약속합니다.
And before reaching the centennial of Korea's liberation, the president also pledged to solidify the foundations of inter-Korean cooperation by promising to host the joint 2032 Seoul-Pyeongyang Olympics. Sharing his vision of peace economy to capitalize on a denuclearized Korea and inter-Korean partnership, the president boasted that the unified Korea can become one of the 6 largest economies in the world and enjoy a GDP per capita of $70,000 to $80,000 around the year 2050. Referring to the doubts that resurfaced over North Korea's firing of short-range projectiles, Moon said the momentum for dialogue remains unshaken, a significant result of the administration's work towards peace on the Korean peninsula. And he said the soon-to-come working-level talks between Pyongyang and Washington will probably constitute the most critical juncture in the peace-building process, calling for all possible support to make them a success.
이 고비를 넘어서면 한반도 비핵화가 성큼 다가올 것이며 남북 관계도 큰 진전을 이룰 것입니다. 경제 협력이 속도를 내고 평화 경제가 시작되면 언젠가 자연스럽게 통일이 우리 앞의 현실이 될 것입니다.
The president said that by achieving prosperity through peace, it is possible to fully accomplish liberation through a unified Korean peninsula. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Now, marking his first appearance at an annual ceremony on Thursday, marking the end of World War II, Japanese Emperor Naruhito expressed deep remorse over Japan's role in the war and pledged to reflect on the country's wartime past. Being the first emperor born after the war, his remarks closely followed the stance of his father, Akihito, who abdicated in May. The new emperor pledged to reflect on Tokyo's past aggressions while expressing hope that such horrors should never be repeated. By way of contrast, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe refused to acknowledge Japan's wartime atrocities. He instead gave a speech on Thursday outlining what he perceives to be a long list of damage inflicted on Japan and its people. As the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong continues to simmer, despite a quiet couple of days on the island, U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed his concerns about China's potential response to the unrest. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Kim Dami. Dami, tell us more.
Mark, in his strongest remarks yet, President Trump says he doesn't want to see the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong met with violence by China. Speaking before boarding Air Force One for New Hampshire on Thursday, he said he wouldn't want to see a violent crackdown. He added his belief that Chinese President Xi Jinping should take the extra step of sitting down with Hong Kong protesters as a way to calm the situation. On Wednesday, Trump proposed on Twitter that President Xi has a face-to-face meeting with the protesters to help resolve the crisis. China flatly rejected Trump's proposal, also slamming his remark that he hopes Beijing would humanely deal with the protesters in Hong Kong. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said on Thursday that Hong Kong affairs are entirely China's internal affairs. The spokesperson noted Trump's previous comments that Hong Kong is a part of China and that they'll have to deal with that themselves. Gibraltar has freed an Iranian oil tanker suspected of breaching international sanctions, despite U.S. authorities' attempts to prevent its release. The British territory's Supreme Court approved the release of Grace 1, which was detained by the country 6 weeks ago. Gibraltar said it was assured by Tehran that the tanker's cargo would not be taken to Syria, which would violate EU sanctions. Amid frosty relations between Washington and Tehran, the U.S. State Department reportedly intervened in order to prevent the tanker from being released. It's speculated a swap deal has been made between the UK and Iran as Tehran seized a British ship in the Gulf a few weeks after Grace 1 was seized. Typhoon Krosa ripped through western Japan on Thursday, leaving 1 person dead and over 30 people injured. The season's 10th typhoon made landfall near Hiroshima Prefecture around 3 p.m. and proceeded north to the East Sea. As of midnight Thursday, it was moving at a speed of 35 kilometers an hour. Over 7,000 residents were evacuated and over 800 flights were delayed or canceled. After crossing western Japan, the typhoon's expected to be downgraded by early Saturday.
Thank you to our Kim Dami for the world news there. Now, Japanese beer has been among the hardest hit from the ongoing boycott of Japanese goods here in South Korea. Once extremely popular among South Korean drinkers, they've actually seen their sales flatline, decrease very badly over the past several weeks as the anti-trade curb boycott really has picked up a head of steam now. It's so bad, in fact, that from having the largest market share among imported beers in South Korea, Japanese beers have plunged to third in the space of just a matter of weeks. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Since 2009, Japanese beer has been the leading imported beer in South Korea. But new data from Korea Customs Service shows sales have significantly dropped since South Koreans began a mass boycott of Japanese goods amid the ongoing trade row between Seoul and Tokyo. According to Korea Customs Service, South Korea imported just $43.4 billion worth of Japanese beer products in July, down a staggering 45% from the previous month's $79 billion. Japanese beer now ranks a lowly third in South Korea's imported beer market after Belgium and the United States. In July, Belgian beer recorded over $45 billion in sales, an increase of nearly 50% from the month before, while American beer products saw sales of over $44 billion, almost doubling from the previous month. Once the most popular imported beer in the nation, Japanese beer products have already seen a sales decrease of 98.8% in the first 10 days of August compared to the previous year, with fewer Koreans seeking to quench their thirst with a can of Japanese beer amid the trade dispute between their two countries. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, South Korea's card spending on Japanese brands has halved over the past several weeks as Tokyo's anti-trade curb boycott shows zero sign of abating anytime soon. According to data from 8 major card companies, spending on such items during the last week of June was $8.4 million, but that shrank to around $4 million during the last week of July amid the widening boycott of Japanese products. Brands like ABC Mart and DHC were affected, and clothing store Uniqlo saw its sales plunge a whopping 70%. This comes despite overall card spending in South Korea actually increasing during that period. Card spending at 4 major Japanese tourist destinations, including Tokyo and Osaka, also decreased by a fifth. Now, Alzheimer's disease is triggered by a build-up of harmful proteins in the brain, and it truly is an awful health condition. However, there may be some light at the end of the tunnel because in a positive breakthrough, South Korean researchers may have found a key to treat and prevent the disease by regulating immune cells in the brain. Park Se-young with more.
Alzheimer's disease accounts for roughly 70% of all people with dementia. No cure has yet been found for the disease, which is linked to protein accumulation in the neurons. Korean researchers have shifted their focus to a type of immune cell in the brain known as microglia, which breaks down abnormal proteins inside the brain. When exposed to stimulus from harmful material, microglia quickly produces energy and disintegrates the target. However, the buildup of toxic materials in the brains of Alzheimer's patients slows the energy production of microglia. Eventually, the microglia becomes unable to move to and destroy harmful materials.
If microglia activity is at 100 in the early stage of stimulus from harmful materials or from outside, we found that its function after chronic exposure drops to as low as 30%.
The researchers also found that artificially injecting a substance into the less functional cell restores its function to the normal range. These new findings could open the door to an eventual cure and more effective preventative measures for Alzheimer's disease. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that we do hope is useful in your everyday life. Today, I'm glad to say we have our Hong-yu in the studio to tell us how much money is needed to take care of a pet these days in South Korea and the changing consumption trends of pet owners. So, before we dive too deeply into the costs involved in raising a pet in South Korea, just give us an idea of how many people in the country actually have a furry friend at home.
Well, Mark, more than 1 million people in South Korea have a pet. That is 1 pet for every 4 households. Those that raise a pet have the pet for an average of 9 years. And during that time, a lot of effort is needed in raising it. For example, almost half of dog owners take their dog on a walk at least 4 times a week.
Yeah, I think you said 1 million pet owners there. It's actually 10 million.
Yes,
10 million, so quite a big difference. But as we all know, pets need food, medicine, vaccinations. This can rack up after a while, grooming as well. So how much are we looking at cost-wise to raise a pet here in South Korea?
Well, according to a pet report by KB Financial Group, an average of $85 per month is needed in raising a dog, and an average of $64 is needed in raising a cat. Most of the money is used for pet food and for the treats, and the rest of the money is used for medical care and grooming. But people are happy to treat their pets because these days pet owners think of their pets as a member of their family. In Korea, these people are called pet fam. The pet industry has seen an average of 19% annual growth on the back of this trend. And because people think of their pets as part of their family, they want to take their pets along with them on trips. So tour companies have started creating pet tours.
Because there are people who want this kind of tour, we saw a potential of such product in the market, and so we came up with our Jeju Pet Tour. Pets can accompany their family all the time during the tour to Jeju Island, including at the restaurant, tour spots, and the hotel, because this tour is pet-centered.
He said that the booking rate is increasing, and so they're planning to come up with more pet tours to other parts of South Korea and even abroad.
Yeah, it's interesting that this industry is really growing because under the new law here in South Korea, dog owners have to keep their dogs on a leash. So these kind of areas where dog-friendly gives the dogs a chance to get off the leash and have a bit more freedom, which is always good to see. So we've been talking a bit about the costs involved in raising pets, $86 for a dog and $64 for a cat. But to what kind of length do certain people go in South Korea to really pamper their favorite pet?
Well, I would say they're willing to use a lot of money on their pets because there are even home spa products for dogs and cats that are labeled as premium products because they're organic, pet-friendly, and eco-friendly, and their quality is almost as good as skin products for humans. These are not just shampoos that we're talking about, but also skin moisturizers, scaling products, and grooming mists that can cost up to $40.
Before, people used to think about pets as a living thing that you can buy just like a toy. But because people think of their pets as a part of the family, the pet market has become similar to the baby market. So now owners are turning to premium products for their pets.
And there are luxury pet shops as well where they sell premium products that can cost up to $1,000. That was roughly what you would have to pay for your pet to spend each night in a bed made out of oak in the style of the bed of King Louis XVI. And at this luxury department store, the most popular dog food can cost up to $50 for just 1.5 kilograms.
Wow, that's incredible, really. You could get a decent amount of steak for that price. So some dogs are eating better than humans in Korea, it seems. I think a lot of this has to do with the rise of single-person households. They don't have children to take care of, so they get a dog and pour all their disposable income into taking care of their pets. But it's interesting to see the pet industry. I'm sure it's going to continue to grow and grow here in South Korea. Hong-Yu, as always, thank you for coming in and sharing your report with us today.
My pleasure, Mark.
Good morning. The Korean peninsula received heavy showers on Thursday due to Typhoon Krosa that hits Japan on the same day. Seoul saw more than 60 millimeters. The rain has tapered off, but we could still see light sporadic showers during the day, so be sure to have an umbrella handy. Daily highs will be 1 to 4 degrees higher than yesterday, hovering in the low 30s in most part. Seoul getting up to 31 degrees. Daegu will be sweltering hot at 34 degrees. And it's very likely that heat alerts will expand to more southern regions as the day goes on. We won't be having any major heat waves this weekend, with morning rain in the forecast on Saturday. Afternoon highs will remain on the warm side for the time being, but we'll definitely have more comfortable nights. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Friday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time. Hopefully, we'll have some more information about those 2 projectiles that North Korea fired this morning. So until next time, goodbye.
아리랑 TV 해외 방송이 벌써 20주년.